Hi everyone and welcome to TROPHiT's integration tutorial for Kochava.
In this tutorial, we'll review the steps needed to perform a server-side integration for an app either Android or iOS. We'll assume the app is already integrated with the tracking provider. Once the integration is complete, here's what will happen. Once an app gets installed, your tracker will recognize the install and fire an event to your game server. In turn, your game server will contact TROPHiT with the necessary information. TROPHiT will process that information in order to create a voucher for a particular user and pass it to your game server. In turn, your game server will turn that voucher into a certain virtual item and provide it to your user. Let's see now what you need to do in order to make it happen. For this tutorial, we'll use a fictional app called Monsters World. It has already been defined in TROPHiT as explained in the Getting Started tutorial. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and define which virtual items of Monsters World are going to be redeemable through TROPHiT. When doing so, make sure the technical ID of every virtual item is the same one that's being used inside the app itself, the same name or ID being used internally for that virtual item. Now we can create a test voucher for our integration. We're going to create a voucher for one life, one extra life. And we'll make sure its settings are to never expire and to be anonymous, which means that in our test environment we can test it over and over. Now the voucher is ready, we're not going to distribute it yet. We're going straight to the integration assistant page in order to start the integration. We'll assume the server is written in PHP and we'll use a quick redemption mode. You can read more about redemption modes using the Learn button. Note you can always come back to this video tutorial using this link.
First, let's go over the prerequisites. We'll assume your app is already capable of two things. One is to create its own internal user IDs and track those creations using the tracker. Here's an example of an Android app that auto-generates a unique user ID, and once it's created, the app tracks that event, called signup in this case. The event includes the newly created user ID by using Kochava's identity link feature. It's the easiest way to ensure that every future event you track will also be associated to the same user ID. Of course, the exact mechanism changes from one app to another. We do show this example as reference only. The next prerequisite we highly recommend in case you are planning re-engagement or pre-registration campaigns is to track deep link activations, the same way you track any other user navigation activity within the app. In this example, we intercept deep links in the standard Android way, and we are using Kochava's deep link event method to track them. Now let's move on to the integration itself. Okay, so we already assumed that the prerequisites are met, and that we've already created our first virtual item and test voucher as required by the first two steps.
So let's continue by first downloading the TROPHiT integration component.
You'll have to place it inside the web service we're going to create in the next step. This way, the service can find the component and use it.
As you've seen in the diagram, this web service will be responsible for receiving the events fired by the tracker. You can also test it using the HTTP request sample below. When TROPHiT delivers the voucher to your server, it will trigger the following method. You'll need to implement it in order to convert every voucher delivered by TROPHiT into virtual items of your game. Each value in the voucher contains the quantity as we defined it earlier, and also the type, which is the technical ID we defined for every virtual item in TROPHiT. Every app implements this method differently depending on the mechanics it has in order to update user accounts. Finally, note that the method returns the voucher code if it's successfully able to convert it to virtual items. Here's a sample of what this method might receive from TROPHiT. You can use it to unit test your method. The last piece of the puzzle is how to let your tracking provider know how to trigger your web service.
This is done by using a Kochava postback for the specific event that first tracks your app's user IDs. As you've seen in the prerequisites, we'll assume this event is called signup for now, but you can choose any other event, of course. Note that you cannot define such a postback on the Kochava dashboard by yourself due to special URL parameters that are needed, such as click timestamp and a few others. So please request this postback for the signup event from your Kochava account manager.
Of course, don't forget to change the host name to your real server.
Also, you may want to start testing with a development server and later switch to a production server. Finally, if you wish to support re-engagement and pre-registration, you will have to request another postback for the deep link event. It's exactly the same as the previous one, with some minor changes as shown here. You also need to tell TROPHiT to use your app's user IDs rather than device IDs by going to your app's settings page and enabling the app-specific user IDs feature.
Finally, let's look at integration testing. To start, we'll need a link for this voucher from our tracking provider. This has already been covered by the Getting Started tutorial, so we'll go over it real quick.
Let's go over to the vouchers distribution instructions, pick up the campaign name. Now let's switch to Kochava and create a campaign. A segment and a tracker. And now we have the link. Now let's make sure the device is whitelisted. This will allow us to repeat the test as many times as needed. As you can see, the device is already whitelisted. In your case, if it is not, click Add Device to add it. Next, simply uninstall the app from the test device. Click on the test link from the device itself and install the latest app version, the one that is capable of tracking the required events. It doesn't matter if it's a live app from the store or one from a development environment. Finally, check for successful redemptions in your TROPHiT reports.
And that's it, your integration is now complete and tested. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial and feel free to contact us for any questions.